Not every truth deserves an audience, and not every friend needs a front row seat in your life. Sometimes what we share can come back to hurt us, not because people are bad, but because words travel, intentions change, and privacy once lost can never be returned. Today, let's talk about the 5 things women should never share with friends, not out of fear, but out of wisdom and self-respect. When we talk about the things women should never share with friends, the first point stands out with a lot of weight. Private struggles are not public currency. Struggles are deeply personal. They are part of the hidden journey that each person walks through alone. Sharing them too quickly or too casually with friends can sometimes feel like relief in the moment, but what often follows is regret or unintended consequences. Struggles hold power, and when that power is released into the wrong hands, it can either be misunderstood, judged, or even used against you. Not every friend, no matter how close they seem, is prepared to carry the weight of your private battles, and not every listener has the heart to handle your story with the same respect and confidentiality that you hope for. What feels like a moment of vulnerability can become a story retold, reshaped, and passed along, and suddenly your pain is no longer yours, but entertainment, gossip, or quiet judgment in someone else's mind. When you share your struggles, you give away more than just words. You give away the rawness of your emotions, the cracks in your armor, and the pieces of your journey that are still unfinished. It's like opening the door to a house that is still under construction and allowing someone to walk through, point out the flaws, and form opinions on a foundation that has not yet been completed. Most of the time, what we are fighting through is temporary, but the impression it leaves on others is permanent. You may overcome the struggle tomorrow, but the friend who heard it may always see you through the lens of that weakness. They may never erase the image of you being broken, overwhelmed, or unsure, even when you rise stronger later. It is also important to understand that friends are human, and humans process information through their own filters. If you share your struggles about your marriage, they might interpret it through their own experiences with relationships. If you speak about financial hardships, they might look at you differently, measuring you against their own standards of success or security. And while they may nod with empathy in the moment, the memory of your words can shift their perception of you in ways you never intended. People rarely hear our struggles as we mean them. They hear them through the noise of their own lives. This is why keeping certain battles private is not a lack of trust, but a practice of wisdom. Private struggles are also sacred in the sense that they are the very grounds where you build resilience. They are the places where your character is forged and your inner strength is tested. By holding them close, you create space for self-reflection, self-reliance, and growth without interference. Imagine a seed planted in the soil that needs darkness, quiet, and time to take root. If you were to dig it up every time someone asked about it, the seed would never grow. In the same way, when you continually expose your struggles to others, you disturb the natural process of growth that comes from silence and solitude. The strength you build in silence is often the most unshakable, because it belongs only to you and no one else. There's also the reality that not everyone who calls themselves a friend truly wishes the best for you. Some friendships are rooted in convenience, some in habit, and some in subtle competition. Sharing your private battles in such spaces is like placing your most valuable possession in the hands of someone who might drop it without care. Even well-meaning friends can unintentionally misuse what you've shared, repeating it in confidence to someone else, not realizing how quickly private turns into public. Once your struggle leaves your lips, it no longer belongs to you, and you can't control where it travels or how it will return to you. Another layer to this is the emotional energy that comes with sharing struggles. Every time you tell your story, you relive it. Every detail repeated strengthens the pain instead of easing it. Friends might listen once, but over time they may grow weary, or worse, they may begin to define you by your struggles rather than your strengths. This can create a cycle where you are unintentionally boxed in by your own vulnerability, reduced to the role of the one who always has a problem, always needs comfort, always seeks help, that image can be hard to shake, and it can overshadow the vibrant, capable, resilient woman you truly are. Holding back private struggles is not about isolating yourself or pretending to be perfect. It is about choosing carefully who gets access to your most delicate truths. It means sharing only with people who have earned the right through consistent trust, loyalty, and proven discretion. More importantly, it means recognizing that some struggles are meant to be carried between you and God, you and your journal, or you and the quiet strength inside your own heart. Privacy, in this sense, becomes protection, not because others are always dangerous, but because your journey deserves the safety of boundaries. Intimacy is one of the most sacred areas of life, and when it comes to relationships, the details of what happens behind closed doors should remain behind closed doors. Too often, people are tempted to share private moments with friends as a way to seek validation, to compare experiences, or simply to have something to talk about. But when you open that door and let others walk through your intimacy, you are not just telling a story, you are stripping the relationship of its privacy, its mystery, and its respect. The more you talk about it, the more it becomes casual, and intimacy is never meant to be casual. It is meant to be personal, protected, and honored. When you tell friends about the intimate details of your marriage or relationship, you reduce something sacred to conversation material. What was once a bond shared between two people becomes entertainment for a group. And while friends may listen, laugh, or sympathize, they can never hold that moment with the same reverence that you and your partner should. Over time, repeated sharing erodes trust. If your partner knew the details were being shared, would they feel safe, respected, and valued? Intimacy thrives on trust, and trust weakens when the private becomes public. There is also the subtle risk of comparison. When you reveal intimate details to friends, you invite them to measure your relationship against theirs. They may not say it out loud, but silently, they start creating a mental scale. Who has the better partner, the stronger connection, the more exciting experiences? Instead of seeing intimacy as the unique expression of love between two people, it becomes something to compete over. This comparison often leads to dissatisfaction, not only for you but for them as well. What you thought was harmless sharing might plant seeds of envy, judgment, or gossip. Intimacy details are also fertile ground for misinterpretation. What you describe with innocence or humor might be twisted into something else entirely once it passes through the filter of someone else's mind. A joke about a small disagreement in private could turn into a story about a troubled relationship once repeated. A personal confession of vulnerability might become exaggerated when retold. Suddenly, what you shared in confidence no longer resembles the truth, and you have no control over how far it travels or how distorted it becomes. Another layer to consider is the dignity of your partner. When you speak about private moments, you expose them without their consent. It is easy to forget that intimacy belongs to two people, not one, and both have a right to its protection. Sharing details with friends removes that right and puts your partner in a position they never agreed to be in. Respect in a relationship is built not only on how you treat each other when you are together, but also on how you speak about each other when you are apart. Protecting intimacy is one of the highest forms of respect, because it shows that you value your partner's vulnerability as much as your own. The long-term consequence of oversharing is a slow erosion of the bond itself. Relationships thrive on mystery, on the quiet moments that belong only to the two people in them. When everything is spoken about, dissected, and evaluated by outsiders, nothing feels special anymore. The relationship becomes exposed, fragile, and vulnerable to unnecessary outside influence. Friends might start giving opinions, making judgments, or even planting doubts that never would have existed if the details had remained private. What should be strengthened by loyalty is weakened by exposure. It's also important to recognize that not all friendships are permanent. People drift apart, conflicts happen, and trust fades. The details you shared in confidence today could be used against you tomorrow. A friend today can become a stranger, and a stranger who holds your most private truths is a risk you cannot undo. Once intimacy has been spoken aloud to others, it cannot be taken back, and the permanence of that reality should always weigh heavily before you choose to share. Guarding intimacy does not mean living in silence or isolation. It means choosing wisely what to reveal and what to protect. Friends can know you are happy, they can know you are loved, and they can see the joy your relationship brings without ever needing to know the details that keep that bond alive. By drawing that boundary, you protect not only your relationship, but also your own dignity. You allow intimacy to remain what it was always meant to be, a sacred connection, untouchable by outside voices, untainted by comparison, and free from careless exposure. Financial matters invite comparison, not compassion, and this is one of the most common yet overlooked areas where oversharing with friends can become damaging. Money has always carried weight beyond its numbers. It represents security, status, opportunity, and sometimes even self-worth. When women discuss their income, savings, debts, or investments with friends, it may start with an innocent intention, seeking advice, sharing relief, or even just being transparent. But money rarely stays in the lane of empathy. The moment financial details leave your lips, they begin to shape perceptions, shift dynamics, and alter the way others look at you. When you tell a friend how much you earn, how much you've saved, or what you've recently purchased, it opens the door to unspoken calculations in their mind. They begin comparing what they have versus what you have, what they lack versus what you possess. Even if they never say it out loud, the comparison is there. Instead of celebrating with you, they might quietly feel inadequate, resentful, or pressured. What you considered sharing as a proud achievement can silently create tension. Envy has a way of disguising itself in friendships, and money is one of the fastest triggers of envy. On the other side, when you share financial struggles, it may not always lead to compassion either. Friends may listen, but repeated disclosures about debts, bills, or hardships can change how they view your capability, reliability, or even stability. They may begin to see you as less capable, less secure, or less independent. In some cases, what you thought was a moment of vulnerability could shift into pity, and pity rarely nurtures respect. Worse still, financial struggles shared casually can become gossip later, exaggerated and reshaped in ways you never intended. Money also changes the balance of trust within friendships. If you talk about earning more, some friends may start to expect you to cover the bill, contribute more, or carry financial responsibility in group situations. Suddenly, your generosity is no longer a choice but an obligation, and if you don't meet those unspoken expectations, the same friends who once praised your success may quietly judge you as selfish or stingy. If you talk about earning less, you risk being left out of invitations, opportunities, or experiences because others assume you cannot afford them. In both cases, the simple act of revealing financial details creates a shift in dynamics that is rarely healthy. Another danger is how financial details fuel competition. Friendships should be about connection, trust, and shared values, but once money enters the conversation, it often becomes a subtle race. Who bought the bigger house? Who drives the newer car? Who saves more, invests better, or spends more lavishly? These silent competitions rob friendships of their purity and replace them with constant measurement. Even if you never intended it, sharing financial details invites this mindset, and once it begins, it's hard to undo. There is also a practical reason to protect financial privacy, security. Information about your income, assets, or investments is not just personal, it's sensitive. The more people know, the more vulnerable you become. Today's friend might never betray you intentionally, but loose talk, casual sharing, or a future fallout could place your financial life in places it was never meant to be. Money is not just about numbers, it's about safety, and keeping details private is part of protecting that safety. Women, especially, face added pressure when it comes to finances. Society has long tied women's value to their financial independence or dependence. and sharing financial details feeds into those stereotypes. If you earn a lot, you may be seen as intimidating or overly ambitious. If you earn less, you may be labeled as dependent or less capable. In either case, you risk being reduced to a number rather than being seen for your true worth, character, and abilities. Protecting financial privacy allows you to define yourself on your own terms, not through the lens of money. What makes this even more challenging is the culture of comparison that exists in friendships today. Social media already amplifies the pressure to showcase lifestyles, achievements, and possessions. Adding your financial details to the mix only gives people more material to measure against. It removes the boundary between your private world and the competitive, performative world outside. Friendship should be a safe space, not another arena for silent judgment, and keeping financial matters private preserves that safety. There is wisdom in understanding that compassion does not always follow disclosure. People may sympathize with your financial highs or lows in the moment, but human nature gravitates toward comparison. By holding your financial life close to your chest, you not only protect yourself from judgment, envy, or exploitation, but you also give your friendships a chance to thrive without unnecessary weight. True connection should be built on values, trust, and shared experiences, not on who has more, who has less, or who spends differently. Family conflicts are sacred, not for casual conversations, because the people we love most are also the ones who shape us most deeply. Every family has disagreements, misunderstandings, and seasons of tension. These struggles are natural, but what is not natural is exposing them too casually to outsiders. The details of family conflict carry history, emotion, and loyalty that only those inside the family can fully understand. When they are shared with friends, those layers of complexity are often stripped away, and the story becomes oversimplified. What was a nuanced disagreement becomes reduced to gossip. What was a temporary conflict becomes remembered as a permanent stain. When you share family issues with friends, you unintentionally hand over pieces of your loved ones for others to examine, criticize, or judge. A sibling who had a bad day, a parent who said something hurtful, a spouse who reacted in frustration. When told outside the home, those moments lose context. Friends cannot see the full picture. They do not know the years of love, the sacrifices, the bonds that outweigh a single bad moment. They only hear the negative, and their perception of your family shifts based on fragments of truth. Later, when harmony has been restored at home, the image your friends carry remains clouded by the story you told in anger or frustration. Another layer of risk comes from the permanence of spoken words. Family conflicts, for the most part, are temporary. People apologize, they forgive, they grow, and they move forward, but friends who have been told the details rarely forget. They might continue to hold resentment on your behalf even after you've moved on. They may develop opinions about your spouse, your children, or your parents that you no longer share. This creates an awkward tension where you have repaired the relationship at home, but your friends still hold on to a version of the conflict that no longer exists. There is also the matter of loyalty. Family is the place where loyalty should be strongest, even in times of conflict. Sharing private disputes with outsiders can feel like betrayal, even if you never meant it that way. It can weaken trust within the family when someone discovers that their worst moments were disclosed beyond the walls of home. The sense of safety that family members should feel, the assurance that their flaws are seen but protected, can be lost. Once that trust is broken, it is difficult to rebuild. Protecting family conflicts within the family is a way of saying, we may fight, but we are still us, and no one else gets to define us. Friends may also give advice that unintentionally complicates matters. They will speak from their own experiences, biases, and judgments, not from the full truth of your family dynamic. A suggestion to cut ties, retaliate, or distance yourself may feel logical to them but destructive to you. Outside voices, no matter how well-meaning, rarely align with the depth of connection, history, and love that binds a family together. By inviting friends into family conflicts, you also invite confusion, noise, and outside influence into something that should be resolved internally. In addition to the risks, there is the dignity of privacy itself. Every family deserves the right to keep its struggles private, just as every individual deserves to keep personal battles protected. Conflicts often involve sensitive matters, finances, health, mistakes, vulnerabilities, that were never meant to be put on display. By keeping them sacred, you preserve not only the dignity of your family members, but also your own integrity. It shows maturity to carry the weight of conflict without broadcasting it, and it demonstrates strength to protect the people you love, even when you are hurting. There is also wisdom in recognizing that families evolve. Today's conflict may look completely different in a month or a year. Children grow up, parents soften, siblings mature, and wounds heal. But when you have spoken too freely about those conflicts, you trap your family in the eyes of your friends as if they never changed. You rob them of the chance to be seen anew, to be forgiven, to be honored for their growth. Holding family struggles within allows time and space for transformation, while exposing them too soon locks everyone in the role of their worst day. Even more, family conflicts often teach valuable lessons: patience, forgiveness, humility, resilience. These lessons lose their power when the conflict is shared casually because the focus shifts to blame rather than growth. Within the privacy of family, those lessons can be absorbed fully, shaping character and strengthening bonds. Outside of it, they become stories stripped of meaning, reduced to who was right and who was wrong. Keeping family conflicts sacred is not about pretending your family is perfect. It is about understanding that imperfection is natural and that those imperfections deserve to be handled with care. The people who raised you, grew with you, or chose to build a life with you are not meant to be characters in a story told to entertain or vent frustration. They are people bound to you by ties that deserve honor, even in struggle. Dreams unprotected often die in open air because not every hope, goal, or vision you carry in your heart is ready to face the weight of other people's opinions. Dreams are fragile in their earliest stages. They are like sparks, full of potential but easily extinguished by a gust of doubt, skepticism, or negativity. When you share your dreams too quickly with friends, you open them to the risk of being questioned, mocked, or diminished before they've had a chance to grow strong enough to withstand criticism. What begins as excitement can turn into hesitation, and what was once burning brightly inside you can fade simply because someone else didn't believe in it the way you did. One of the most dangerous things about sharing dreams too soon is that not everyone will see your vision. People interpret your goals through the lens of their own limitations. If your dream is bigger than what they think is possible for themselves, they may dismiss it, not because it lacks value, but because it makes them uncomfortable. They may project their own fears onto you, telling you it's unrealistic, too difficult, or impossible. If you're not careful, those words take root in your mind and begin to grow into doubts that were never yours to begin with. Suddenly, what was once pure belief is mixed with hesitation, and hesitation is where many dreams quietly die. There's also the reality of envy. Not every friend who listens to your dreams wants to see them succeed. Some may smile and nod, but deep down, they might feel threatened by your ambition or your potential. Sharing your vision with such people exposes you to subtle discouragement, negative energy, or even sabotage. They may not attack you directly, but small comments, "Are you sure you can handle that?" or "That sounds risky," can chip away at your confidence. A dream that might have flourished with quiet focus instead begins to shrink under the shadow of someone else's insecurity. Even well-meaning friends can unintentionally hurt your dream. Sometimes they offer advice that comes from a place of love but is rooted in caution. They don't want to see you fail, so they steer you toward safety, toward smaller goals, toward things they believe are more realistic. But dreams are not supposed to be safe. They are supposed to stretch you, challenge you, and take you into places you've never been. By accepting the limits others place on you, you shrink your vision to fit their comfort zone, not your calling. Dreams also lose energy when they are overexposed. The act of talking about a goal often creates the illusion of progress. You feel accomplished just by speaking it aloud, and the more you repeat it, the less urgency you feel to actually work on it. Talking replaces doing, and eventually the dream loses momentum because it was spent in conversation instead of in action. Keeping dreams private, especially in their early stages, protects that energy. It keeps the fire alive within you, fueling your actions rather than feeding empty words. There's a deeper reason for protecting dreams, and that is identity. Dreams are often tied to the deepest parts of who you are, your purpose, your desires, your vision for the future. When you share them carelessly, you allow others to define them, reshape them, or even claim them. Some may take your ideas and run with them, leaving you behind. Others may laugh at them, causing you to question yourself. In either case, the dream is no longer entirely yours. It has been altered by outside voices when it was meant to be nurtured by your own. Dreams need privacy in the same way seeds need soil. They need to be planted, hidden, and allowed time to take root before they can withstand exposure to the outside world. When you protect your dreams, you give yourself space to plan, to fail quietly, to learn, and to grow without the pressure of an audience. This privacy allows your vision to mature, so when the time does come to reveal it, it stands strong and undeniable. By then, no amount of skepticism or doubt can shake it, because you've already built the foundation in silence. Protecting your dreams does not mean isolating yourself completely. There are moments when sharing is necessary, but those moments require discernment. Share only with people who have proven they can support you without judgment, who can listen without trying to limit you, and who can celebrate your growth without envy. These people are rare, and they should be chosen carefully. Until then, let your dreams live quietly inside you, nourished by your effort and strengthened by your resilience. Boundaries are not barriers, they are shields of dignity, and this truth becomes clearer the more you experience life and relationships. Many women struggle with the idea of setting boundaries because society often paints it as selfishness or coldness. But boundaries are not about pushing people away. They are about drawing a clear line around what protects your peace, your values, and your identity. When you treat boundaries as shields instead of walls, you begin to see that they are not tools of separation, but instruments of self-respect. Without them, you invite misunderstanding, misuse, and even harm into your life. Every relationship, no matter how close, needs limits. Friends, family, colleagues, and even strangers will take as much as you allow them to. This isn't always out of malice. Sometimes it's simply human nature. If you never draw a line, people assume there isn't one. They keep asking, taking, or expecting until you feel drained, resentful, or invisible. By setting boundaries, you communicate what is acceptable and what is not, what you can give and what you cannot, what belongs to you and what you are willing to share. These shields preserve your dignity by reminding both you and others that your worth is not up for negotiation. A lack of boundaries often leads to resentment. You might find yourself saying yes when every part of you wants to say no, or keeping quiet when you know you should speak up. In the moment, it feels easier to avoid conflict by pleasing others, but over time, the weight of constantly betraying yourself builds into bitterness. That bitterness is not directed only at others. It begins to erode how you see yourself. Every time you allow someone to cross a line you didn't enforce, you send yourself the message that your needs don't matter. Boundaries protect against this self-abandonment by making sure your voice is honored first by you, then by others. Boundaries also teach people how to treat you. If you never enforce them, people assume that whatever they do is acceptable. If you let someone interrupt you repeatedly, they learn that your voice is not important. If you allow a friend to dismiss your feelings, they learn that your emotions are negotiable. If you keep giving money to someone who misuses it, they learn that your resources are endless. But the moment you draw a boundary, you send a clear signal that your time, energy, and dignity are valuable. People who truly respect you will adjust to those boundaries, and those who don't will fall away. In either case, you gain clarity about who belongs in your life, The shield of dignity that boundaries provide is especially important for women because many are conditioned to equate kindness with self-sacrifice. But kindness without boundaries is exploitation waiting to happen. You can be generous and compassionate without being depleted. You can be caring without being taken advantage of. Boundaries ensure that your kindness remains a gift, not a weakness to be used. They keep you in control of when, how, and to whom you give, so that your giving always comes from strength, not from guilt. There's also a practical strength in boundaries. They conserve energy. Every day, you have a limited amount of time, focus, and emotional capacity. If you spend it all on people who drain you, there is little left for what matters most. By setting boundaries, you choose where your energy flows. You prioritize your growth, your well-being, and your meaningful relationships, instead of scattering yourself thin trying to keep everyone else satisfied. This is not selfishness. It is stewardship of your own life. Boundaries are also acts of clarity. When you say no to something that doesn't align with your values, you are saying yes to what does. When you refuse to entertain gossip, you are choosing integrity. When you decline an invitation that leaves you exhausted, you are choosing rest. Every boundary is a declaration of what you stand for, and in a world full of pressure and noise, clarity is dignity. You show others who you are not just by what you accept, but by what you refuse. The fear of losing relationships often stops women from enforcing boundaries, but the truth is that boundaries reveal which relationships were genuine all along. People who love you for who you are will honor your limits. They will appreciate the honesty, the clarity, and the consistency. Those who only valued what they could take from you will resist, complain, or distance themselves. Either way, boundaries protect you by filtering out the relationships that cannot hold your dignity. And perhaps most importantly, boundaries protect the relationship you have with yourself. They remind you daily that your needs, feelings, and time matter just as much as anyone else's. They prevent you from overextending, from losing yourself in the demands of others, and from living in quiet resentment. They allow you to remain grounded, confident, and whole. When you respect your own boundaries, you teach yourself that you are worthy of love, respect, and protection, and that is the essence of dignity.